Truth Unveiled here, keeping you updated with the world around you. And today I would like to share with you all of the riots that are going on and all of the preparation that your lovely police and military are doing, as well as let you know how your government is preparing for not only emergencies and national disasters, but also how they're planning on quarantines and what the UN is doing as well. But I'm here at CNBC and it says Cleveland is spending $20 million in federal money on riot and security gear for the Republican convention, and we're going to talk more about that as well as the Democratic convention in just a second to come. While this is not out of the norm, the question you should be thinking about and the question you should be keeping in your mind is why all of this preparation? Because it goes on to say, as Cleveland prepares to host the Republican National Convention this summer, it's bidding on millions of dollars of security equipment and tactical gear for its police. Cleveland and Philadelphia, which will host the convention, each receive $50 million in federal money to cover the security costs associated with the conventions. Cleveland projects to spend $20 million of that on security equipment and supplies and $30 million on personnel related expenditures. And like I said, while this is not out of the norm, why are we seeing all of these preparations ahead of time, not just with the police, not just with military gear and rioting? And we're going to go over more of this in just a second to come. But it goes on to say that the city of Cleveland estimates it will spend more than 40% of its federal grant, or about $7 million more than Tampa did, on equipment and supplies. This includes plans to buy 2,000 sets of full-body riot suits for the police, and the city currently employs 1,500 police and will look to add about 3,500 from units based in other places. Cleveland has also put out bids for, among other things, 24 sets of ballistic body armor, 300 patrol bikes, and more than 3.7 miles of interlocking steel barriers, all of which can be used to curtail protesters. In some of my other videos, I've gone over different government and military documents in which your military has the so-called right to use lethal force and non-lethal force on you in case of rioting and protesting. Why do you think that's the case? Why do they have the so-called legal right to even do that to begin with? Because when you understand the bigger agenda, courtesy the Zionists as well as the elite and the military, then you start to understand exactly what they're getting ready for. Because here I am at the official Cleveland.com website, and it says Cleveland quintuples RNC protest insurance coverage to $50 million, citing increased risk concerns. And that's all you're going to hear from mainstream media, which is courtesy the Zionists, by the way, because that's always what they're going to feed you is, oh, increased risks concerns, increased security concerns, and they're going to keep using that in order to increase the military presence more and more, because they want you to get used to seeing police black helicopters all over the place. They want you to get used to seeing a military police state, and they're going to slowly feed it into your mind from now up until the so-called alleged elections, until the so-called national emergencies start to take place. Because why else is your government getting ready for these things? Have you ever wondered and considered these things? I hope so. Now the article goes on to say that Cleveland officials on Wednesday voted to buy a $50 million protest insurance policy for the Republican National Convention, which is a five-fold increase over what was previously approved, and a tangible sign that city officials now believe the risk of hosting the event is larger than what was initially believed. And we know darn well that these elections are just being used as a ploy and a front in order to cause chaos, because what order out of chaos? Because we know darn well that Mr. Obama is staying in office. For those of us who are awakened to truth and know the bigger agenda, we also know that he's even joked about running and winning a third term. Hello, do you see what's going on here? Not to mention that, but we also know that the elections is just one big fraud. It's one big joke, because they're using it in order to incite violence as well as protests and riots all across America. And we see the building blocks for it, just as we see with the Republican National Convention. And we see that they're using Donald Trump as a ploy and a puppet in order to cite race wars and race riots. That's all it's for. Please do not fall for the hype. Now we know that this is a bigger ploy for the elite and the Illuminati as they continue and commence with their plans of Operation Summer of Chaos. And if you would like to learn more about that, please watch my video below, which I did a couple of weeks ago explaining more on that. Now I'm here at the actual website, which is the 2016 Republican National Convention, and as you see, it will be held in Cleveland, Ohio at the Quicken Loans Arena from July 18th through July 21st, 2016. Now don't get it twisted and don't get get it confused. This isn't the only place that they're considering all the riots and stuff. We're going to be seeing all of these riots nationwide, and they're already preparing for riots nationwide. It's not just going to be at these conventions, and it's not just going to be held with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and all those other ones, but we also see that what else is your government doing that they're not telling you? Well, what they're also doing is that they're bringing in these refugees, and they're using the illegal immigrant crises, so to speak. They're bringing in all of these so-called refugees courtesy UPS planes and USPS planes, as well as DHS trucks and through other alphabet soups. They're sneaking them into America even as we speak, and they're housing them at so-called FEMA camps and other places in secret government locations, because what they're going to do is disguise themselves as so-called terrorists, and then they're going to go around and try to wreak havoc in America, and that's going to be the government's excuse to bring in the military, one of many excuses to bring it in. And I hope you see that with both your eyes open. Just look at Europe and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, because all of what we're seeing there is just one great big test before they bring it to America. But don't worry, because you're not just going to see increased security at the Republican National Convention. Oh no, you're going to also see it with the Democratic National Convention too, because I'm here at Newsworks and it says riot ready, Philly in talks for protest insurance ahead of DNC. And like I said, it's not just going to be Philadelphia and Cleveland, and it's not just going to be big events like this, but we're also going to see increased security all over the place. We already see it with the so-called alleged Orlando shootings and how they have increased security all over the place around America, not to mention how they're increasing security for the Rio Olympic Games that are supposed to take place next month. And I've done a video covering this as well. Why all the increased security? Because of alleged terrorism. Who are the real terrorists is the question. Now, the actual article goes on to say that the city of Philadelphia is getting law enforcement liability insurance to cover potential claims of police brutality and other civil rights violations that could arise out of this summer's Democratic National Convention protests. In the city of Philadelphia, as well as the Democratic National Convention, are all working together to sort out all the details and what they plan there as well. Now, like I said, while this is not unusual, there is something else going on, and there's something even bigger going on, and that something is going to be all of the stage riots and protests, as well as the paid protesters courtesy your government and courtesy George Soros and all those other elite and terrorist Zionists who at the very top. Because anytime your government does something, think about it like this: problem, reaction, solution. They cause the problem by causing the event, and then they get your reaction of uproar and upheaval, and then the solution to this is that they send in their own protesters, which they pay under the table in order to protest at these different places and start violence and trigger violence and upheaval. Just look at Ferguson, and that's exactly what they did, because many of those so-called protesters who were burning down buildings and everything, they were not even from Ferguson. Where were they from, and who was funding them? Courtesy the CIA and FBI. But I'm here at Daily Caller, and it says 20,000 committed to anti-Hillary Occupy DNC protests, and we're going to go to their website in just a second, but it says more than 20,000 people have committed to protest Hillary Clinton's likely nomination at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, and that number is growing quickly, and we're going to go to that. But before we do, I just wanted to take you to the Occupy DNC website just to let you know that this will not be the only organization that is in these riots, because many of these organizations, not all of them, but many of them are funded by the government and George Soros and the elite ahead of time. Why? Because they're trying to spark upheaval any single way they can. And the reason this is so important, and the reason this relates to martial law, is because it gives the government an excuse to bring in the military. And I hope you're seeing that, and I hope you're also seeing the bigger agenda. Oh, but this isn't the only thing that your government's preparing for. Now, I'm here at the actual DNC 2016 website, and as you can see, it even says that the 2016 Democratic National Convention will be held at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia on July 25th through the 28th, 2016. Working in partnership with the Philadelphia Host Committee, the City of Philadelphia, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, our goal is to make this the most engaging, innovative, and forward-looking convention in history. The 2016 Democratic National Convention will leverage technology technology to bring the convention experience well beyond the hall in an effort to engage more Americans than ever before in the event. With the birthplace of American democracy as a backdrop, the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia will highlight our shared democratic values and help put the Democratic nominee on a path to victory. But what if I told you that there was no such thing as Democratic and Republican to begin with? What if I told you that these two things were created in order to create what? Democratic versus Republican, in order to divide and conquer Rome all over again, because you never had rights to begin with, because it doesn't matter if they put in Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, they're all going to fulfill the same agenda of the elite and the Illuminati, which is what? Depopulation and depopulating the plane to 500 million. At least that's what's according to the Georgia Guidestones. Because it's all an illusion. That's all it is. They give you the illusion that you're free and that you really have rights, even though you don't. They give you the illusion that your vote counts, even though it really doesn't, and that votes in elections are rigged to begin with. They give you this illusion because they want you to be disillusioned to what's really going on, and they don't want you to know the plans of the New World Order and how they're going to lock American citizens into FEMA camps. At least that's their plans. But why are they even doing this? Because they're trying to distract you any single way they can. Because meanwhile, what are military UN trucks doing in Virginia? Bemused motorists spot white combat vehicles on the interstate. And that's the question. Why are we seeing United Nations tactical vehicles? What could they be getting ready for? And I talked more about this in my video from last week, which I will also link below so that you can see it, as well as all of the government documentation to prove that your government and your military are not only vehemently preparing for prison detention camps as well as FEMA camps, but they're also looking for biometric technology to also put you into these camps, as well as lock you into these military detention centers inevitably. Because not everything is a conspiracy theory like your government wants you to believe. Oh no, this is a conspiracy fact. And I'm here showing you how well equipped are these combat trucks, because these are the same combat trucks that they're looking to use, they as in the United Nations, when martial law is finally declared and they enforce these unconstitutional executive orders. But that's right, you never had rights to begin with, because the Constitution never mattered to begin with. But it goes on to say that the VX weighs in at 16,600 pounds. It can seat for 2 plus 8 crew. The windows do not roll down, but instead there are locked gun ports on the vehicle that can be opened to shoot bullets out or accept documents in, and are even big enough to pass through a can of soda. Glass is a mini. There are also internal fans to keep the bad air out. And there is also a PA system equipped with these trucks to speak to the outside world, not to mention remote-controlled spotlights on the roof and pairs of red and blue strobe lights that are mounted to each 4 sides of the vehicle. Every window on the vehicle is filled with ballistic glass that'll shed small arms fire like they're pebbles and even resist a close-range shot from a high-powered rifle. Not to mention that they contain 9 gun ports, and angled roof and floor are designed with anti-mine protection in mind and can repel modern frag explosive, not to mention how every door overlaps with ballistic steel so no stray bullets can penetrate at an angle. Now the question you should be thinking about is, why would the military even need these vehicles if everything is okay? Why are they getting ready for these emergencies? What exactly are they getting ready for is the question. Because as I've talked about in my previous video, and I will leave the link below, your government has many documentation to prove that they're getting ready for national emergencies such as HR 645, as well as military documents that even include the FM 3.39-40, which talks all about FEMA camps and how they plan to have detainees. Who do you think the detainees are? But that's not all, because I'm here from NPR and it says inside a secret government warehouse prepped for health catastrophes. And that's all they're talking about: preparing for health catastrophes, preparing for this catastrophe, preparing for that catastrophe. If you even go to the CDC website, you'll even see that they're preparing for a zombie apocalypse, and your government has government documentation to prove that. Because this gives you a picture of the stacks of boxes that contain critical supplies stretch almost as far as the eye can see in the Strategic National Stockpile warehouse, courtesy of the CDC. Another alphabet soup indeed. And let's not forget this too, but there's also been other sightings of these military tanks and vehicles, not just with the United Nations, but we've been seeing them nationwide in railroads and abandoned railways, as well as abandoned warehouses as well. Why are we seeing that? What could they be getting ready for? But it goes on to say that when Greg Burrell tells people he's in charge of some secret government warehouses, he often gets asked if they're like the one at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the Ark of the Covenant gets packed away in a crate and hidden forever. Well, no, not really, he says, director of a program called the Strategic National Stockpile at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC. Thousands of lives might someday depend on this stockpile, which holds all kinds of medical supplies that the officials would need in the wake of a terrorist attack with a chemical, biological, or nuclear weapon. The question is, how do they know that's going to happen though, and why do they need to stockpile, especially at such a time as this? What's the point if everything is okay? And what's even worse is when it says the location of these warehouses is secret. How many there are is a secret, although a former government official recently said at a public meeting that there are 6, and exactly what's in them is secret. Why is it secret? Why are they keeping it a secret? And why are they not telling us what is even there? And also, when it says that there are 6, how do we even know that they're telling us the truth? Because we know darn well that the government is good at lying. Now, the article goes on to say that the Strategic National Stockpile got its start back in 1999 with a budget of about $50 million. Since then, even though the details aren't public, it's clear that it has amassed an incredible array of countermeasures against possible security threats, because there's always a threat against America, isn't there? There's always a threat against America and Israel. Let's keep going. The inventory includes millions of doses of vaccines against bioterrorism agents like smallpox, antivirals in case of a deadly flu pandemic, medicines used to treat radiation sicknesses and burns, chemical agent antidotes, wound care supplies, IV fluids, and antibiotics. Now, while that may sound fine and good that the government is stockpiling for our benefit and for the betterment of us, while it may sound fine and good that they have all these vaccines, the question you should be thinking about is, why are they stockpiling to begin with? What are they getting ready for? And why do they even need to stockpile all of these things? Not only that, but when they even say that they have millions of doses of vaccines, well, it's been proven that vaccines cause many more diseases and cause many more problems and are behind things such as autism. And these are things that have been scientifically and medically proven that vaccines do not help you, but is responsible for the plans of depopulation. Is your government getting ready for these things? Is your government getting ready to fulfill the plans of the New World Order in order to cause chaos through riots, and not to mention national emergencies, in order so that they can spread pandemic and place people in quarantines courtesy these Walmarts in order to place them into FEMA camps? Is that what they're getting ready for? Not to mention all of the planned stage pandemics like we see with the Zika virus hoax, as well as all the other ones like the H1N1. Is that what they're getting ready for? That's what it's looking like. Please seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha so that you can be ready for all of these things to come once they come. But this is Truth Unveiled here, saying shalom.